In this video, we're going to talk about production efficiency in economics. So production efficiency refers to a situation in which the economy is producing so many goods, right? So let's say that it's producing food and steel. It's producing so much with the resources it has that it cannot produce an additional unit of one of the goods, let's say food, without decreasing production of the other good, let's say steel. So for example, so let's say our economy, here's our PPF curve, right? So this is our production possibilities frontier, and we could conceivably produce 100 million tons of food if we produce 0 tons of steel, or we could produce 50 million tons of steel and no food, right? So all the combinations along this curve are efficient in production. So let's take one for example. So let's say right here, let's say that if we did 90 million tons of food, so let's say this is 90 million tons of food, and then if we did that, we would be able to produce 40 million tons of steel. Okay, let's just take this point right here. Okay, so that point is efficient in production, and I want to prove it to you. I want to prove it to you by using this definition here. So let's say that we were to say, okay, so at this point we're getting 90 million tons of food and 40 million tons of steel. So I'm just going to put it here, 90M, 40M. So this is food, this is steel at this point, okay? Now, if we were to say, well, let's produce an additional ton of food, okay? Let's see if we could do 91 million. We could, but we would have to decrease production of steel, right? We cannot produce additional food, because 91 million tons of food with 40, that would be a point here. And that point is not feasible. All right, all the points out here, these are not currently feasible given our resources that we currently have, right? So we only have so many resources, so many people, so much capital, and so forth to produce so much food. So this point, as well as all the other points all along that curve, are efficient in production, because if you take any point, right, you could take this point, you could take this point, etc. It's basically saying, look, at those points on that curve, you could not produce any more food without giving up some steel. Or alternatively, you couldn't produce any more steel without giving up some food. And so that's what efficient in production means. Now, all the points on the interior of this those are inefficient, right? So what I mean by inefficient is the following. So let's take this point right here. Okay, let's say that corresponds to 70 million food. So that's 70 million food and then 40 million steel. Now that is inefficient because look, we could increase from 70 million to 90 million. We could increase and get 20 million additional tons of food. We could go up here without giving up any steel, right? We wouldn't have to give up any steel to do it, because we'd go from 70-40 to 90-40. Look, the steel production does not decrease to get us from 70 to 90. But once we are on this curve, once we are on the PPF, that is no longer possible. It's efficient because we're maxed out, right? So think of efficiency in production as we are maxed out. We cannot produce any more of one good without decreasing our production of the other.